Welcome back to Advocacy in Motion. I'm your host, Tommy Finn. And if you've seen the program before, you know we are here to give a vision and a voice to nonprofit organizations and individuals making an impact in our community. And I want to say how pleased we are to have been celebrating Women's in History Month with our past shows this month. And our guests have been just really great for us. Julie Dobbs, who is a DFW groundbreaking sportscaster and one of the executives here at the Vocal Studios, joined us. Lisa Brodsky is the CEO of Chai Community Homes for Adults. And Hannah Surich, the Director of Corporate Communications for the Dallas Mavericks, was our guest as well. So we are so pleased to have them, and we're pleased for our guest this week to continue Women in History Month. But before we introduce our guests, I want to say thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Niagara. Niagara has been on board with us from the beginning. With their help and support, we've reached out to so many nonprofit organizations. And if you don't know, Niagara is the leading manufacturer and distributor of plumbing products, water-saving plumbing products. And their new stealth technology saves up to 60% of water, which means 60% of cost, which is important to everyone, but it's mostly important, and we're really proud of their work with nonprofit affordable housing, saving those projects money that can be used in other ways is a great help for everyone. So we want to say thank you to Niagara for their sponsorship and their continued sponsorship. My guest host today, you know her. She's been with us before, and I appreciate her coming in. It's Ann Ranson. Ann, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back.
Ann is a strategic planning expert and conscious leader who helps organizations and individuals grow. And she also has a passion for helping nonprofit organizations, which is why she's been so helpful for us in introducing us to so many nonprofit organizations, including our guest today. So, Ann, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Yes, I'm so excited to welcome Mary Pat Higgins, who is the CEO of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. And so we're very excited to have you today, especially in March, since we're celebrating Women's History Month.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ian.
Of course. I'd like to start by asking you, as a woman leader, what advice would you give? Like, I just met your niece, and maybe I don't know if she's asking you for any advice, but if she did, what would you say to young women today who aspire to leadership, whether in the nonprofit sector or not?
Sure. Well, I think I have been very fortunate in my life to have very strong women role models, my mother and my two older sisters. And, I've seen through them what was possible, and they have helped me understand that anything that I wanted to do was possible. I think the most important thing is to try to figure out what you're passionate about. And once you find that, then it's really so much easier to become successful because your work becomes joy and really meaningful. And I think the other thing is to be open for different possibilities. Now, I started my career in public accounting, and now I'm the CEO of a Holocaust and History Museum. So no one would have seen that path for me, myself included, but there were several steps along the way that made that possible, and it's because I was open to opportunities and really ready to make a very strategic but very, very different change at different points in my life.
So can you say a little bit about that journey and how you ended up at the museum?
Sure. Well, I was in public accounting for my first 5 years out of college and really enjoyed that. But I knew that I had nonprofit clients, and I started to get the sense that I really would enjoy working for a nonprofit that was mission-driven. And being at an organization that was really trying to make a difference rather than having a profit motive. And I just, out of the blue, had an opportunity to go work at Hockaday School, which is the largest girls' school in the country. It's here in Dallas, and it was at the time a day school with a boarding component. They're actually phasing out the boarding component. But because of the boarding, it was like a small college campus. So it was open 24/7 and had dorms and, food service and all of these different elements. And I had the opportunity to come on board as their business manager, and ultimately my title became chief financial officer. But I was focused on the financial elements, but also learned about building management and security and technology and risk management and food service. And we started a child development center at the school for the faculty and staff that were there. We built a number of buildings, and I got to be the project manager for that. And it opened my eyes to my management skills and opportunities of being able to figure out things like construction. I had no experience with, but if you know how to do some research and ask the right questions, and you pick really wonderful consultants or partners to work with that know the field, then you can be an effective manager of almost anything. So that encouraged me to go back to school to get my executive MBA. So I did that when I was 40 and actually 42. So I was one of the older ones in the class. Yeah. And that really helped me work on my leadership skills and sort of think more strategically. And so that opened my eyes to believe that I could be a leader of an organization. So I started volunteering. I was on a number of boards in town. I was the board chair of Planned Parenthood of Greater Dallas at the time, which now has become Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas. And I was on the board of KERA and my children's schools, and just developed a passion for governance and leadership. And a headhunter called and asked me if I'd be interested in the position of becoming the president and CEO of the museum. And when I learned about its mission, it was risky, and because it was really small, and they had this huge dream of building a new museum, which meant raising a lot of money. And I'd never raised any money, and I certainly wasn't a historian or a museum person, but I took a leap of faith and joined the effort, and it has been transformational for me.
Well, there's so many pearls of wisdom in what you said, but just keying on that last of, taking that risk and
Right.
taking that leap. And I think, that's hopefully something that women who anyone who's listening, but particularly women who may be listening this month, about the power, of just taking a risk. And as we know, life is risky.
Right.
There
It
are no
is.
guarantees anyway, even when we think we're in control, right?
Right. Well, and I'm saying I'm risky. I've worked 3 places in my adult life, so I'm not a huge risk taker.
Yeah.
but I did at 2 very pivotal times. Took the opportunity to do something very different than I was doing. And, I'm a long-range planner, and I had these plans. I was going to be a partner at Arthur Andersen, and then had the opportunity to go to school. And I'm just so thankful that I took both of those opportunities.
Well, and I think the community is thankful that you took the position because the museum. So tell us a little bit about the museum, the mission, and how that has changed since you first joined the museum.
I was really, the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum was formed in 1984 as the Dallas Holocaust Memorial Center. And so it started in the basement of the Jewish Community Center. I'm very grateful that there were 125 survivors living in Dallas, which is a small group, but when you think about other major metropolitans in the U.S., but that group was one of the first to organize and build a community museum. They were so forward-thinking, and they were at the point in their lives that in the late 70s they started getting together and talking about their responsibility to do something to honor the memory of their loved ones who had been murdered in the Holocaust. So they started going to speak at schools, and then very quickly they realized if they could open a museum, they could have so many more students come to them. So the first museum was born. It was about 1,000 square feet, and it was in the basement, literally the basement of the Jewish Community Center. But for 21 years, thousands of students went to that museum every year, and their eyes were open to this history. In 2005, a really visionary board leader realized that if they wanted families and the general public to come visit the museum, in addition to the students, that they needed to move to a different location. And he found a spot to rent that was about a block away from the 6th floor museum in the historic district of downtown Dallas. And at that time, the mission didn't change, but the name changed, and it became the Dallas Holocaust Museum Center for Education and Tolerance. Oh. So too long of a name.
Yeah.
And now
roll off the tongue.
Too long of a name. And now also, I think, a lot of people involved really started to wonder if tolerance was what, the end goal was. Is that really enough? But the museum started on that journey. And that exhibit was framed based on trying to encourage what we call upstander behavior.
Yes, and I want to come back and ask you more about that.
Well,
yes.
So it really started to look at teaching very specific parts of history to influence behavior. Okay. And that made the leaders start to think about the opportunity to expand the mission, to teach about the Holocaust, and also about civil and human rights in the United States, issues of prejudice and discrimination that we face here at home, and how wonderful it would be if we could design an exhibit that was rooted in the history of the Holocaust, but then moved forward in time and looked at current issues that our community is facing, and try to impact our visitors to help them understand that we all make choices every day, and if we can be thoughtful and decide to stand up for what we believe in instead of be a bystander, turn a blind eye, then we can really make a difference. So it was a small museum that had a really big dream, and I was hired in 2013 to help mobilize an incredible group of volunteers and those visionary survivors to start planning and designing and building this museum and raising money. And, Dallas is a very philanthropically supportive community. We surpassed our fundraising goals and raised money from people outside of the Jewish community who believed in the mission and were excited about this expanded content. And we were able to, accomplish our dream and actually surpass our goal and open the new Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum in September of 2019. So our third name, I hope, will be our final name.
Yes.
I'm not changing it again.
All right. That's wonderful. You mentioned the Upstander program, and we want to come back and visit about that some more. But first, I want to say thank you again to another one of our sponsors. Piranha Haven is this wonderful little spiritual gift shop in downtown Richardson. You'll find art from local artists. You'll find merchandise from free trade villages. You'll find all kinds of crystals and spiritual gifts there as well. And on the fourth Saturday of every month, they have a psychic fair. You can go to piranhahaven.com and check out all of that and what they have. And like I said, it's close to my heart. So if you go in and see Alex, tell her Dad said hello. So we thank them. They've been a very good supporter of ours from the beginning and will continue to be. So if you get a chance, check out piranhahaven.com.
Terrific. I will.
So, Ann, we mentioned the Upstander program.
Yeah, I'd like to, two things come to mind. First, I guess that building experience at Hockaday ended up being fortuitous.
Yes.
Because then how many years later did you do the capital campaign and build the new museum?
Right. Well, I had the opportunity to build to manage about 5 different projects at Hockaday. And really, over a 10-year period that prepared me to do this big project at the museum. So you just never know what opportunities, when you have a chance to learn something new, what that might lead to.
Say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember my first construction meeting calling my husband to say, what's the difference between concrete and cement? And he didn't really have a very good answer for me.
I
But
don't think anyone does.
I don't know the answer. Okay. Are you
Right?
going to enlighten us? What's the difference?
well, no, I still don't know the answer.
Okay.
I did at one point, but it's a minor difference. But
Yeah.
the thing is, I was sitting in this meeting being clueless, but then I realized, they were incredible professionals that architects and engineers and that knew their trade but what I needed to do was think a big picture and really ask the strategic questions and really develop a relationship with them where they didn't want to let me down too. And that I think was has been the secret to my success is forming relationships with people, aligning with experts in their field. That the historians at the museum are experts in that subject matter. And I know that they are there when I need their expertise, and they are always making sure that I have the information that I need to do a good job.
So tell us about upstander.
So, this concept of upstander behavior is something that my predecessor, his name was Ellie DeLynn, started using. And I think, it's debated when this word first came about. I've read some people think Samantha Power was one of the first to use it when she was talking about genocide. And the difference between upstander behavior and bystander behavior. The way we define it at the museum is an upstander is someone who sees something wrong and works to make it right, who stands up for their beliefs, for what they believe in, and their rights and the rights of others, and who works to combat injustice, unfairness, and inequality. And, it's a made-up word, but it's so much better than saying to someone, don't be a bystander.
Yes.
So much better to be affirmative, right?
Yes.
And, when we do professional education and work with kids, we make sure that they understand it's not a binary choice. In any given day, I could be an upstander and a bystander multiple times. It's not that you decide to be an upstander and you always are. It's about deliberate choices that you make, and being very conscious of the impact that your choices have on other people. So our goal in teaching really difficult history but also inspiring history, is that there were people in the Holocaust, there were people in other historic genocides that we teach about, many, many people in the United States that have worked to bring about change, that stood up when they saw something wrong, risked their lives often to save someone else or to stand up for what they believe in. Think about the bravery of the people on the front lines of the civil rights movement who literally were risking their lives. And we hope that people will realize that there is, we live in a democratic country. We have a voice. There is opportunity to speak out and be heard. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but we need to make sure that it stays that way and that we can make a difference if we choose to stand up for what we believe in.
I think that's absolutely terrific, and what you're saying fits right in line with our program here. The reason we chose the name Advocacy in Motion is you're saying upstander as opposed to bystander. We're encouraging people to get involved, to put some motion behind the advocacy rather than just watching the parade go by, to actually join in and do something. And we've been so fortunate, people such as yourself or other guests that are encouraging the same thing. And that's what we want to continue to do with this program. If there's something out there that's near and dear to your heart, get involved.
So, Tommy, the last thing we have in our permanent exhibition is a call to action. And it's exactly what you said. you don't have to save someone's life literally to be an upstander. Just start by getting engaged and becoming a volunteer. And so we introduce our visitors to about 120 nonprofits that are doing work throughout our community and beyond, and encourage them to send an email to the volunteer coordinator before they leave the museum to get engaged. That is the best way to be an upstander. Start by caring about someone other than yourself.
I think that's wonderful, and that's what it's all about. That's why we're all here.
Absolutely.
So how can people get involved with you, with the Holocaust and Human Rights Museum?
Well, first, come visit. We need visitors. I'll tell you, we've got some fabulous exhibits. Right now we have an exhibit about the LGBTQ civil rights movement that really gained power at the Stonewall uprising. But, come visit, start watching our programs. Just last week, we had Masih Alinejad, who is a leader in the women's rights movement in Iran. She's actually a dissident living here in the United States, and she has had 2 assassination attempts on her life for speaking out about women's rights in Iran. So she's just an example of the sorts of speakers we have. So go to our website, look at who the speakers are, do that. And then if you really have a passion for this mission, become a volunteer. We need docents who have been trained on the content in our exhibit, who can interact with the thousands of middle and high school students that come through our museum to help them engage. They just draw them in and tell them a little bit about the history, and that's all it takes to get the kids really engaged. And so it's really, it can be intimidating, but it's very rewarding. And you can see that light bulb go off with some of the kids, not all of them. And, I can't think of a more worthwhile volunteer experience. So we desperately need docents to help the tens of thousands of students who go through our museum really take away what we want them to take away.
Excuse me. Are there specific qualifications to be a volunteer?
No, we
Other
ask
than
people
your time?
Then your time and your passion and commitment. We ask people, we do a background check. We ask people to go through an orientation, and before you can go through docent training, because that's really an investment of our staff's time to train you too, we ask that you volunteer in a different position for 10 hours. And then we provide docent training on the content that is in the permanent exhibition. And I've gone through the training, and it's sort of like being in the best college course. You don't get a grade, but you're learning amazing history from these brilliant historians. And then you just have to shadow another docent if that's your path, and that you have a mentor, and you have to sort of pass a test case or experience. But once you have done that, then you start interacting with the kids. And for the people, we have about 75 really engaged docents, and they do it because they feel like they're making a difference. They see the impact of when they engage with a school group and the difference it makes, rather than having the kids just go through the museum on their own, which, some students engage on their own, but not all will.
Well, and having gone through at least a small portion of a guided tour, and I wish I could think of what her name was, but the insights and the context, and I think had I gone through just by myself, I would have missed so much.
That's right. You don't have to have knowledge about this history. A lot of people have read and come to it with some knowledge, but we provide that content, and we provide training on how to talk to kids, how to engage them. So there's a lot of support. It's not for everyone, but for the people that have tried it and or found that it's something that they really enjoy, they're incredibly passionate about it.
We have a sister publication, youthsportstoday.com, and we focus on messages to kids.
Yes.
and to get involved. And we talk about athletes, student athletes, their parents, their coaches, their educators. And so this is something that we can work with you guys on as well, because we want to tell the story of kids getting involved, of families getting involved, wherever it might be. It doesn't have to be just sports. But we kind of work together with our magazine to get the message out as much as we can.
Yeah, that would be so great. Just recently, we had a student, I think she's 15 or 16, and her parents both go through training, and because they wanted to volunteer together. And so definitely you don't have to be an adult to do it. One of our very best docents was a senior in high school. Really? She went off to college and then came back and was an intern the next summer, but boy, was she great with her peers. Yeah. So I definitely want to make sure that people know you don't have to be an adult for these opportunities. Yeah. We need all kinds of volunteers.
So what other kinds of resources? So you're a nonprofit, so
Right.
fundraising is always at the front of needs.
Yes,
So
it is.
how can people support you in that way?
Well, thank you for asking that. You know, it has been operating a museum throughout the pandemic has been very challenging. And we wouldn't have been able to continue to accomplish our mission without our members and our generous donors. So anyone that's interested in supporting the museum, I would ask first to become a member, you know, and you can become an individual member for $75. There's a discount if you're a senior or an educator or a veteran. And then, you know, obviously you can give more than that if you are so inclined. But when you're a member, you kind of become a part of our family, and you get newsletters, digital newsletters that tell you about the programs that we have, tell you about all what's happening at the museum. And that is a really important way to donate to the museum and support us annually. You know, nonprofits need ongoing annual support. We need donors that can come in and make huge gifts. Obviously, that's how we built the museum. But to survive and be financially sustainable, we need people that believe in our mission, that support us every year, so we can count on them, and then that allows us to plan and do the programs that we do.
Do you have any events coming up that people could support you through? Or?
Yes. So 2 events coming up. One is Yom HaShoah, which is the Day of Remembrance for Jewish Holocaust victims. And our commemoration will be on Sunday. I think it's April 16th. It's a Sunday that's right in that time period.
Sunday is the 16th.
Okay, Sunday, April 16th. It will be at Temple Emmanuel at 7 o'clock. There's no admission fee to attend, but you do have to register. And we have a memorial book that people can contribute in, and where we are remembering, you know, having the names of the victims of the Holocaust who, you know, local families lost. And so that's one way, maybe, and you make a small contribution to that. We also have our spring event is the opening night of To Kill a Mockingbird through Dallas Summer Musicals. And it is the new version that Aaron Sorkin, you know, based on Aaron Sorkin's sort of rewrite that was on Broadway several years ago.
Oh.
It's opening night, and Richard Thomas, that my generation knows as John Boy.
Oh, yeah. Good night, John Boy.
He is Atticus Finch. And so, you know, that's a way to go see that incredible production, very meaningful to our mission, but support our mission too, and be with like-minded people. There's a reception before, and there's a reception afterwards, and we're hoping a few of the actors will come by afterwards to meet our donors.
Tell us the date of that again.
The name?
The name and the date of
the name is, so this is May 14th. And it is our spring event, our spring fundraiser. You can go on our website, and it's the opening night of To Kill a Mockingbird. And we still have tickets left. We will not be the only people there, but we'll be about a third of the people at the Fair Park Summer Music Hall Series. And it's going to be a wonderful time. We'll have a lovely reception before, and you'll be with like-minded people, and then get to see this incredible play.
Oh, yeah. So how should people find you?
So our website is www.dhhrm.org. So that is the initials of our name, Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. You can Google Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum, and our website will come up. There, you can see on the website ways to support us. You can see ways to send an email to our volunteer coordinator to sign up for an orientation. You can buy tickets to come visit us and learn about the program series. There's a program tab. Most of our programs are free. So, if you don't know much about us, come visit or participate in a program and see what you think.
And are y'all open 7 days a week?
No, and we were open 7 days a week before the pandemic. We now are open Wednesday through Monday. So we're closed on Tuesdays.
Okay.
We're open from 10 to 5. And I wouldn't come visit on a weekday until about 1 o'clock because there are thousands of kids in the building.
Hey, tell us again where you're located.
We are at 300 North Houston Street. So we're in the far west end of downtown Dallas, just diagonally across from the 6th floor museum. It's where Houston and Ross intersect.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Anything I forgot to ask that you'd like to tell us about?
One quick thing is just when you're thinking about supporting us, I want people to know about a new program we have called the Upstander Partnership. We do use the word upstander a lot because it's powerful, but we are working with almost 60,000 students in North Texas, so Coppell ISD, Hurst Euless Bedford ISD, and DISD with their Southwest schools, to provide them content that promotes and supports upstander behavior and teaches history that promotes and supports upstander behavior kindergarten through 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
So the kids are getting this content in every grade, and at 4 points, we're either sending an educator to them or they're coming to the museum for a tour. And the great part of this program is that it's iterative. That the impact is so greatly magnified when the students are talking about this concept of upstander behavior every year throughout, and monthly throughout the year. What our hope is that through our work we can help the next generation, of future leaders understand the difference that they can make if they stand up for what they believe in. And this program is helping us reach so many more students.
Well, just as a citizen of Earth, I just want to thank you for the work you personally do in leading the museum, but the work that the museum does in, keeping the light shining on these things that we need to know about, that we need to be educated about, that we need to feel. I mean, I felt myself getting quite emotional a few times today because the work is so important. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel so fortunate to be working with amazing leaders and volunteers and professionals to try to make a difference in our community. And, I think that's the beauty of nonprofit work, is that you really can make a difference. You don't make a difference every day, believe me. Yeah. But if you stick with it, you can make a difference. And it's been a blessing in my life.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And what you're saying is exactly what we want to put out there, of people who are making a difference in the community, whether it's a CEO or a volunteer. That's what we're all about. And Ann, thank you so much. I know every time you join us, I introduce you, I have a whole list of things you are doing in the community, helping with nonprofit organizations. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how people can get in touch with you.
Well, I have a website, annranson.com, and I do a lot of different things. I used to think I was kind of schizophrenic, and, I finally just owned it. I just have a lot of interests, and I'll just share one thing that I've been doing is working with strengths as a coaching tool. And I was trained with an organization here in Dallas called Core Clarity. They're licensed by Gallup Strengths, the old Gallup polls. Well, not the old. I mean, they're still around. That formulated this whole idea that we all have a certain number of strengths, and that we're happier, we're more productive, we're more effective when we operate from using our strengths, as opposed to kind of the old school way is, you hire somebody, you send them through a bunch of tests, and one of them, that comes back and says, well, you're really good with people, but you're really not good with details. And so what do? They send you to an Excel spreadsheet class instead of capitalizing on your strengths with people. And so I love working with people on their strengths. It's a tool for self-discovery, but it's also a tool for effectiveness and productivity.
Tommy, I want to jump in. Ann is working with me and with some members of my team to understand their strengths and to really improve how they communicate with each other too. And it's making a huge difference. She just really does a fabulous job.
That's wonderful, and she helps us out so much here with introducing us to people such as yourself. And our other guest, like I said, we're very pleased to, I think this is our 15th program, which means 15 nonprofits we've talked to and put out there. And you can see all of those if just simply Google Advocacy in Motion podcast, and you can go back and watch every one of our podcasts and the different organizations and individuals we've had the honor to feature here. So I want to thank you both so much for joining us, and we look forward to moving forward.
What a pleasure. Thanks so much for talking with me today. Thank you, Ann.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mary Pat. Thanks.